Wake up, wake up. It's Monday, Super Bowl week. The Niners are in New Orleans. Oh, well, no, they're not. They're at home. The Eagles and Chiefs are in New Orleans. We'll talk a little bit about it. Let's go right now.
Wake up, wake up. It is great to be with you. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. It is fantastic to be brought to you by Sam's Chatterhouse. We thank them as always for sponsoring here. And Larry, again, we got Super Bowl week. I am back in America after a week in Mexico. 12 years ago today. Oh, Larry, 12 years ago today, the 49ers were losing Super Bowl 47 to the Ravens. This is the anniversary of Jacoby Jones, 108 yards return to the house to start the second half, the blackout, the fades to Crabtree, not giving the ball to Frank Gore, goal to go, game on the line. A dozen years of ghosts out of that game, Larry. We had so much fun that week in New Orleans. We had plans to have fun this week in New Orleans. Think about it. I was going to go directly from a fish show on a beach in Mexico to New Orleans. I don't know if I would have survived the 2 weeks, Larry. I can be honest. I don't know if I would have survived that. But, we unfortunately are not there. What a hell of a time we had, though. A dozen years, man. That went by so fast.
Well, it does seem like just yesterday. And, man, that was an aggravating Super Bowl. I mean, I just really felt – there were so many aspects of that game that were very, very tough to handle. I mean, the 49ers got tremendous rush on Joe Flacco. A couple times he escaped down the, out of the pocket and just threw these loopy – anybody could have it passed down the field. And Anquan Boldin would come up with it over Chris Culliver, and they just kept going to Anquan Boldin. And Anquan Boldin beat the Niners that day. He was fantastic. He was absolutely fantastic. And the Frank Gore. To me, it was that was the most inexcusable. That's the one that the Niners let get away. That was the one, not the Mahomes games. It was that one. Why? Because if you watch that game. And I don't know how many people have taken the time to rewatch Super Bowls or rewatch even Super Bowl highlight films. I actually did that this weekend because they had, as soon as the Senior Bowl ended on Saturday, they just started going Super Bowl I, Super Bowl II, Super Bowl III, Super Bowl IV, half-hour specials. And I wound up watching the first 16 over the last 2 days. I wanted to see 0 through 16. We forget about the beginning Super Bowls, and we just don't focus on that. But that game, if you went back and I actually saw Niners-Ravens in the TV copy in its entirety, not a condensed version, not a highlight version, the entire game. It was on the week that the 49ers were going to play the Ravens on Christmas night. So that week, they showed that game again. And I said, you know what? I think I'm ready to sit down and watch it again. And it's the most inexcusable loss in 49er history.
Look,
if you go back,
Larry, to me, the whole thing is you can set it up and tee it up all you want. It all comes down to this. LaMichael James got more touches and Randy Moss got 0 touches with a Super Bowl on the line in a goal-to-go situation. What the hell is that?
No, they threw it to Randy Moss. He dropped it. They threw a pass to Randy Moss. He dropped it. No, but here's the thing about that game, though. That was the most inexcusable part. Is that, there were all kinds of screw-ups, right? You mentioned the Jacoby Jones 100-yard thing. Bruce Miller, he ran right down the middle. Bruce Miller was in his lane, should have made the tackle. He was being combo held. He wasn't being held by one guy. He was literally being held like a sandwich between two guys who both of them had holds of his jersey. No call on either one. 100-yard return, Jacoby Jones. Horrible non-call. One of the worst non-calls in the history of the Super Bowl. So that would have negated a gigantic touchdown. But that's not the real inexcusable. And we can point to Frank Gore not getting the ball. That's inexcusable for sure. The Crabtree fades, the play calling at the end, horrible play calling, horrible.
The timeouts.
But to me, if you go back and look at that game, it was the beginning of the 49ers' final drive that brought them down to the goal line. A lot of people thought the 49ers weren't even going to get a chance to get down to the goal line because they had to, drive the length of the field basically. But they did it in like a really, really quick amount of time. Why? Because the Ravens defense at this point in history had old Bernard Pollard, old Ray Lewis, old Ed Reed,
this is
old Haloti Ngata.
Deer antler spray Ray Lewis.
They were so gassed. And Kaepernick had an early run on that final drive, and nobody reacted to him at all. And the announcer on the broadcast is like, wow, the Ravens really look tired here, Jim. They didn't come off blocks at all there against Colin Kaepernick, and that does not bode well. Hopefully they can hold on here, blah, blah, blah. Then Gore gets loose and gets down to the 7-yard line. They now have 2 minutes and like 8 seconds going, and going into their first and goal on the 7. They got plenty of time. Now they have more time than they even really need. Now they went from like time is the issue to time is no issue.
Right.
Okay?
Don't give the Ravens too much time to come back and have a field goal on you. By the way, Justin Tucker, interesting weekend, if you don't mind me saying. I saw that over the weekend too.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
So I mean, that was, to see that, this is where Harbaugh got, his frenetic, neurotic, nervousness and, his personality interfered with his mind. Anybody watching that game on offense, offensive coaches notice everything, Damon. They notice if a defensive back is leaning forward. They notice if a linebacker is leaning backward. They know if they notice every little wrinkle. This was the most obvious thing that the announcer on the TV copy is like, the Ravens really are struggling to make plays against the run. So They can't stop Kaepernick. Can't stop Kaepernick at all. He has a couple runs. It's like, wow, oh my God, Kaepernick can run. He can run right down the middle of the field if he wants. Then they hand it to Gore. He has this massive 28-yard run down to the 7. So now it's first and goal on the 7. And the way the Ravens are defending the run and the way that you have Frank Gore as a running back and Kaepernick as a running quarterback, all you have to do is call a run pass option to Kaepernick's play side and let him run. So they call that on first down, and he gets it. He gets it. He drifts right. He could have taken off for the goal line this was second and goal. He could have taken off from the goal line. Right? The first and goal play, they hand to Michael James. Why? To give Frank Gore a rest? My God, that's the worst call of all time. It's Frank fucking Gore. Give it to Frank Gore. Michael James had already fucking fumbled in that game. So that was a fucking ridiculous call to hand the ball to Michael James instead of Frank Gore. Let him rest tomorrow and forever. Okay, so that's number one. That was first down.
I didn't bring this up for you to have an acid flashback.
I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I'm here. I'm doing it. So that's the first down. That's first down. Second down, they called the right play. It's a Kaepernick roll right run pass option. He has got, if he had taken off and run, he could take it down to the 2-yard line, if not score. Instead, he drifts, he doesn't take the run lane, and then he throws an unbelievable 120-mile-an-hour bullet off of Crabtree's shoulder pads and helmet at the 2-yard line, and incomplete pass. So now it's third and goal, and that set up the last two plays, which I think third and goal was to Moss, fourth and goal was to Crabtree or whatever it was, and it was just a nightmare. It was just a nightmare, but they blew a first and goal from the 7. And in a year where Baltimore absolutely could not stop Kaepernick or Gore, they didn't run Kaepernick or Gore, and they lost. So Jim Harbaugh gagged that fucking Super Bowl. There were terrible calls that went against the Niners that were total bullshit. Some of the worst calls ever. And of course, the power outage, created what a lot of people feel was an advantage for the Niners. I don't know how they saw it that way, but it just happened to play out that way. But the sequence on the final drive was the worst offensive play calling I've ever seen under pressure. So
it was a gag
Jim
job.
Harbaugh, fuck off.
It was a gag job for sure.
Great week. Terrible game.
The fact that the game began with illegal formation on the very first offensive play of the game for the 49ers, Vernon Davis, illegal form. I mean, it was just insane how a team that had been so buttoned up for so many years, faced so many big situations, just gagged all over the biggest moment. And it
was a fun week, though, man. It was an epic week.
You can tell it's Super Bowl week. Larry's fired up. We had so much fun. It was great. It was great. Too bad we couldn't do it again this year. The Super Bowl, will be at Levi's Stadium next year. So, Larry, that'll be a lot easier for us to get to.
I told my beignet story the other day on a live stream where basically I was hanging out with Townsend in the French Quarter and lost him. It was like 4:30 in the morning. Lost him. So, and I don't know if I lost him to what. I don't know if he. I don't know if he got abducted, if some girl dragged him to a dance floor, if all of a sudden I went left, he went right. He just wasn't there.
He didn't make it back to the Bay Area. We have seen Chris Townsend in the last dozen years. So he
made it. He made it home. So it's 4:30 in the morning and I'm in the Quarter and I got $25 to my name. And I'm like, I got to get back to the Hampton Inn. I'm on the air at 11 a.m. So it's now time for me to go home. And I see one of those bike riders, that has a little gondola or whatever, and so I'm like, hey man, can you take me to the Hampton Inn? I go, I only have $25. He goes, oh, no problem. It's about 16 blocks from here. I can get you there in about a half hour. And I go, great. I go, all I have is $25. I can't give you here. I'll give it to you ahead of time. Even I can't give you a penny more. It's not worth, I don't have any more. He's like, no problem. So I give him the $25. He starts driving. Okay. Now he goes, hey, man, have you had a beignet from Cafe Du Monde or something like that? I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, well, we got to stop and get one. I'm like, dude, I told you I have $25 to my name. He's like, that's okay. I'll cover you. Now I'm nervous. Now I'm really nervous. I'm like, why is this guy paying for my beignet? So he stops at Cafe Du Monde. He runs in. He comes back out. He's got a white paper bag. You can see, Damon, the powdered sugar is like 3/4 of the bag. You can see where there's no powdered sugar. I'm like, what the hell is that? He's like, yeah, they put a lot of powdered sugar in there. So he hands me the bag. He goes, there's 2 beignets in there. So now he starts driving. And I'm holding, he keeps looking back. And I'm like, what? He's like, you got to eat the beignets. Now I'm getting nervous because I'm like, now he's forcing me to eat something. I can't even look at it. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So I reach in, huge amounts of powdered sugar down in the bottom. It's in there. It's this warm donut. I start eating it. I eat the donut. Now it's starting to rain in New Orleans. Okay, we get back to the hotel, the Hampton Inn. Every person that saw me get out of this thing and in the lobby of the hotel did one of these. They all did
powdered sugar.
They're just double taking me. And I have no idea why they're double taking me like this. I knew I probably had some powdered sugar on me. But other than that, I get up to the room, Damon. I swear to you, because of the wind, the rain, the powdered sugar, and just the fact that I was eating it, it looked like a powdered sugar bomb had gone off and my mouth was the epicenter. And it was like I had powdered sugar in my hair, in my jacket, and it's all like literally emanating from my face, and it's like all in lines and everywhere, powdered sugar everywhere. And I'm sure people probably thought, man, this guy's on a coke. This guy just had some coke bender nightmare or something, because people gave me the craziest looks. Anyway,
well, 4 a.m, you normally see a guy with white powder all over their face in New Orleans. It's one of two things. In your case, it was beignets, so that's good news.
It was an amazing week, though. Amazing.
We had so much fun together. That was like, one of the last great Super Bowls, because they still weren't allowing like just fans to roam around the media center, so you could really get guests in and out of interviews. And that was like one of the last great media Super Bowls. It really was. It was so much fun. We had a great time. I got great pictures that are populating on my Facebook timeline. Here's some memories for you. I had a picture of you and I just, arms around each other in the broadcasting booth, doing the game, doing the post game show, and how we both looked happy for that photograph, I don't know, but both of us have a smile on our faces as we sat there and explained away that terrible Super Bowl loss a dozen years ago today.
All right, let's get to Myles Garrett. Let's get to Myles Garrett, because Myles Garrett has demanded a trade, and that's what people care about. They don't care about the Super Bowl and this bullshit. So let's get right to it. Myles Garrett has demanded a trade. A lot of people want to speculate that he will come to the 49ers. It's highly unlikely. He's an incredible talent for sure. He's a monster. His stats are video game numbers. He's exceeded all expectations since 2021. He's got sack totals of 16, 13, 14. It's just he's an amazing player.
Yeah, the position he plays is game wrecker. He is one of the most premier solo individual game wreckers in this sport. And today he's formally requested and publicly requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns, who I guess already have come out and say they're not interested in that, and they're not taking any calls or entertaining any offers. But we all know where this goes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I know where it goes. I mean, if Cleveland doesn't want to trade him, nobody can force them to trade him. I mean, there are teams all over the league that just don't trade players. I mean, it's not, everybody's got a different mode in this league, and there are teams that literally just were like, hey, you don't want to be here? Fine, just sit there, and we won't move you. So his contract voids in 2027. Any team trading for him would have him under control for only 2 more seasons. The reason the Browns don't want to trade him is they're going to need to eat more than $36 million in dead money if he's traded pre-June 1st. If you trade him post-June 1st, that would cut the dead money hit to $14.7 million, but even $14.7 million is a very, very sizable post-June hit. We know the Browns are like before the season even starts, because of the Deshaun Watson trade, are kind of already eliminated. I know people don't think of it that way, but they're in salary cap hell right now. I mean, now the good news, there's no more guaranteed money on Garrett's deal. But he's going to want a contract extension from the new team that he goes to, likely as part of the deal. So that's going to have to be folded in. And you're probably talking about $30 million plus just to swim in those waters, maybe more. More.
Larry, I would think that any team that would want to get into the Myles Garrett business has to open with an offer of 2 first-round draft picks. I mean, this is a steep price to play for anyone to pay for this player. Like, there's no deal on Myles Garrett.
Well, and also, he's due $20 million in 25, $25 million in 26. So not only are you going to have to pay through the nose to get him, you're then going to have to pay him a huge amount of money, because that's the way it goes. So, it's just, the Niners have $43.3 million in effective cap space, and they got 5 picks in the top 100. So, that's their ability to swim in these waters. But you know what?
The problem is, though,
once again,
this is lot. I mean,
this is not the issue. This is not the answer. Once again, it's like, this is the answer for people that don't know football. If you don't know football, you're going to say, go get Myles Garrett. Why? Because you don't know anybody else. So you're just going to be like, go get Myles Garrett. The people that don't know football the most will cheer the loudest for the Myles Garrett trade, because they don't know the alternative, and they have no They don't know the prospects. They don't know, like, if you don't trade for Myles Garrett, then what? You know what I mean? You have to know what your alternatives are to know if you should do something or not do something. So that's really the bottom line. If you're real like simplistic football person, you're going to be like, get Myles Garrett, because he's a great player and he plays a position that the 49ers would love to fill, right? I mean, they've been looking for a Nick Bosa tag team partner since they got Nick Bosa. They had D Ford and they've had Ebukam and this year Leonard Floyd, but they haven't really had that great guy opposite Nick Bosa. And so people are dreaming the dream, but stop with it, because the 49ers got to this problem because of their fascination with one. It's not the way to go. It's football. This isn't the NBA. The don't
49ers,
go for one.
The 49ers are not looking for one single bottle of top shelf liquor. They have to restack the bar.
Well, they might be looking for one, but they shouldn't be. I'm not saying that they're making the right decision. I'm saying that because they have been looking for that one. Hargrave was that one. The talk about T. Higgins is definitely a 49ers talking about one. The speculation about Garrett Wilson is definitely like, hey, we're thinking one. But I personally just don't think they ought to think that way, because I think when you think that way, then that one guy gets hurt, and then you're the Warriors losing to the Raptors in the NBA Finals because you have stars and they don't, but your stars got hurt and they've got depth. And then you look up, you're like, hey, their depth beat our stars. So 49ers aren't one star away. I mean, if they are, that star's name's Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes. It's not Myles Garrett. So there you go. I mean, I love Myles Garrett. He would be awesome. But you know what? It's not that simple, man. You're gonna have to go find players in the draft the old-fashioned way. You're not gonna be able to shortcut it. No more shortcuts. I mean, you can't do shortcuts every time. You just can't. And I know it's popular, but no. Doesn't work.
Yeah, and I just look, if you dream about Myles Garrett, if you like this trade, I don't think it means it's because you don't know football. This is a sexy player. This is a big brand. But I mean, it's easy. There's no counter. Right. There's no,
okay, what's the alternative? Okay. I would say this. Listen to the people who are saying, go get Myles Garrett. And then all you got to do to just absolutely ruin their day is just be like, hey, if you didn't get Myles Garrett, what would be your alternative in the draft? Or who would be your alternative? What would you pivot to? And then just wait for there to be gigantic silence, because the people that are yelling for Myles Garrett don't know the player in the draft. That's why they're yelling for Myles Garrett. So that's the way it is. I mean, the 49ers went all in for Javon Hargrave. They shouldn't have.
Didn't work.
A huge mistake. They went all in on Trey Lance.
That going all in on Javon Hargrave and Myles Garrett will never appear in the same sentence ever again in their careers, other than the ones that we just spoke. I mean, one player is not the next. Javon Hargrave was, hey, he's a really good player. We sign him and hope to get the most out of him. You're getting a first ballot Hall of Famer in Myles Garrett.
Javon Hargrave was coming off of an 11.5 sack season.
He was really
from a
good
defensive tackle.
No doubt.
Javon Hargrave was playing at a super high level, and was very, very productive player. In a lot of ways, it's the same thing. It's a great player that you're going to have to pay a ton for, and it's about going for one over depth. And yeah, you can get that one player. I mean, heck, the Philadelphia Eagles got Saquon Barkley, so they got one player, but they got one player when they were one player away, not when they, are the 49ers one player away? Well, Myles Garrett's going to help their pass rush, but is he going to help their offensive line? Is he going to help the fact that they don't have any receivers? Is he going to make Brock Purdy better? I mean, it's like, come on, it's like, it's too much of a shortcut again.
I'm going to just say that in the name of Brian Sabian's battle cry of due diligence, John Lynch gets on the phone with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, you do inquire about this. You do explore this. This is not a, never mind issue, I think, for the 49ers front. I think every single team in the NFL has to sit up and take attention that Myles Garrett could be gettable. He's that much of a piece. But is he the right piece at the right time for the 49ers, where they are in their competitive cycle? Would Myles Garrett want to be a 49er? What would he think about playing opposite of Nick Bosa? How excited would he get about that? I bet you'd be pretty excited about that. I wonder what he thinks of Robert Salah. And the other bit of news that I really, it did hit me this week while I was avoiding my cell phone on vacation, was how absolutely excited, Larry, it seems like every single 49ers defensive player who's played for Robert Salah before is that he's back in the room. I mean, there is an awful lot of excitement. And it seems that, offensive coaches, I think, need to keep their calm about them. They need to be the guys who are the steady hand on the wheel, driving the car, not panicking, not overreacting. We just talked about how over his skis Harbaugh felt at the end of that Super Bowl a dozen years ago and how that was his panic moment. You don't want to be overly emotional as an offensive coach, but as a defensive coach, that element of emotion is something that players pick up on, and you got to play defense with more emotion than you play offense. And you've got Fred Warner talking about how Robert Salah is just that guy. He fires the team up. And then he mentioned how DeMeco Ryans was that guy, very emotional, tapped into that vein of let's go get him that defensive players needs to feed on. Sorensen wasn't that guy. Steve Wilkes wasn't that guy. And it just sounds like these guys are thrilled that fire-breathing Robert Salah is back in the room as much as they are about X's and O's improving under Robert Salah. Like, it sounds like this team needs his energy back more than anything else defensively.
They're happy he's back, for sure. And I'm sure the Niners like the emotional element, on the sideline, a little bit more emotion. But, let's not make any mistakes about it. That's not the issue. I mean, the issue is not that. The issue is the fact that they don't have talent. The issue is not, Sorensen was too quiet on the sidelines. I don't care if he had a bullhorn. It wasn't going to make a difference. It's not about that. It's about players. Defense, pro football, man. And it's about players. When you have them, you win. And when you don't, you don't. And that's it.
But we also saw communication issues. We saw breakdowns in coverage that, I guess any player could break down in coverage. They're just, I don't know, if communication was a problem and players are talking about how much fun it's always been communicating the right way with Robert Salah. To me, I'm reading a little bit more into that maybe than that's actually there. You're right. I mean, it is about players and the horses to run the race, but you also got to have the players. I mean, that's their issues. All that stuff is just talk. It's just like talk. It's noise. It doesn't really register with me because it's not. Sorensen's demeanor, doesn't make. Your safety's better coverage guys. Right. Sorensen clapping harder doesn't add 2 wins to last season. I get it.
Yeah. So, you got to have players. I mean, we can talk about all the different reasons. The reasons the 49ers have regressed and are 6-win team and are not in the Super Bowl is because they missed 10 times in the first 3 rounds. They had 10 picks in the first 3 rounds. They missed on 10 picks in the first 3 rounds in the 21, 22, and 23 drafts. I mean, that's a ton of fucking misses. If you miss 5 times, I mean, just think about it. Let's just say they miss 5 times in the first 3 rounds of a 3-year draft cycle, 3-year draft run. That's a lot of misses in a 3-year run. 5 is a lot of misses.
Yeah.
If they had missed 5 times, they would currently have 5 more players on their roster that were in their prime of their career and that they were drafted in the first, second, or third round. I mean, that's if they were half as bad as they are. if they were half as bad as they are, they, if they had 5 more guys taken the first 3 rounds, I mean, just look at players that have been taken in the first 3 rounds that are doing things on the team. I mean, they would be quite a bit of a better football team. And if they had actually hit on all 10, they'd probably be in the Super Bowl. And if they had hit on 8 of 10, they'd be in the playoffs. But they missed on 10 of 10, and they missed the playoffs. So it's a players thing. They I love John Lynch, and I think he's a really good guy, but man, I mean, they took some wrong guys. I mean, Danny Gray, Ty Davis Price, all these guys. I mean, come on, man. Drake Jackson. It comes home to roost. You have to hit in the draft at a certain percentage, and they have been woefully bad. They made amends for it this year, but it was too little, too late. And what team? I can't even remember a team the last time it happened where a team had as good a draft as the 49ers had and still had a bad year. Usually, if you have a great rookie draft class, that fuels your year. See the Rams from this year. Rams had a really good draft class. They made the playoffs. They were a surprise team. The Niners had a really good draft class, one of their best in years, and they won 6 games. So that's how bad the previous 3 drafts were. They couldn't even overcome it with a great 24 draft.
Yeah. The bad draft bill doesn't really hit your table into 2 to 3 years after that bad draft. And the bill hit the table and everybody got crocodile arms looking for their wallets, and the 49ers could not pay it. It was rough. It's bad, which almost, Larry, I almost don't want to bring this up. I almost don't even want to bring this up. The algorithm will either embrace this or shut it right the hell down. Trey Lance is out there. As the 49ers consider what to do behind Brock Purdy, and they need to do something that is a little, cost-effective. Trey Lance, probably a very undesired, unrestricted free agent. He could be easy to acquire. Would you, for a minute, if you're the 49ers, entertain the idea of bringing Trey Lance back to Santa Clara?
No.
Not interested at all.
Why?
Not interested at all.
Nope.
Okay. Because you used to be.
Why are you interested? I'd like to know.
Well, I'm really not, but I thought that you might be, because you have been maintaining how much you believe that Trey Lance will work in this league, can still figure out carve out a spot for himself in this league. I kind of gave up on Trey Lance before you did. You're the one who thinks that there's still a real player there. And if the price is right, who would you rather have backing up Brock Purdy as your young backup, Tanner Mordecai or Trey Lance?
Well, I mean, it's proven that Kyle Shanahan is not a quarterback coach. He's not. He doesn't develop quarterbacks. He never has. I mean,
then explain to me Brock Purdy.
He was fully developed before he ever had him. He stepped in the first game that he ever played. He played like a veteran. He's literally there was no development there at all. He had a full 4-year career, and he was a fully formed quarterback. And when he stepped in for Jimmy Garoppolo in week 13 of his rookie year, he proved it. He ran the table. He was incredible. So yeah, that he doesn't really count, because he's like the veteran quarterback that had all the veteran traits. I mean, he processes incredibly well. He moves incredibly well. I mean, has he gotten worlds better? I don't know. I don't know if he's gotten worlds better. He looks pretty much the same guy he's always looked like to me. So I just don't think that Kyle Shanahan is a developer of young quarterbacks. I don't think his dad was a developer of young quarterbacks. I think they're great play callers. I think they're great play sequencers. I think they're really good offensive minds, but I don't think either guy has the patience. I think both guys are inherently impatient. I don't think they have the patience to bring along a young quarterback, which is probably why I wouldn't even try to bring in another young quarterback. I think I would go the Joe Flacco route. Just go after Flacco. I mean, Flacco's 40, and you have Tanner Mordecai, who's going to be there as well, and you have Brock. And if you want to find somebody in the draft, there were a couple. There were 3 Senior Bowl quarterbacks that kind of opened my eyes. I'd be open to, but I personally think that'll just go sign Flacco. According to the reports, they're one of 3 or 4 teams showing interest in Flacco. I think Flacco makes a ton of sense for them. I mean, big arm, veteran. No, he can totally do the job if you need him to.
Right,
but
he can come and
there's
win
no
like
he should be the guy.
Right.
Like one of the biggest problems with the Trey Lance thing was that it totally divided the fan base, and then it became this race thing too. It was like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. So if the Niners go with the white quarterback over the black quarterback, they're racist, and it's like that got a little crazy, and people just started spouting all kinds of ignorant stuff, and I'm sure the 49ers noticed that. For that reason alone, I don't think I'd want to bring in Trey Lance to introduce that whole conversation again, because it got so ugly. And also because I don't think Kyle can develop Trey, and I think Trey needs to go somewhere and actually play.
I mean,
so
clearly,
I don't know where that is, actually. I think it's probably Canada. I mean, he probably needs to just go somewhere and play for 3 years and then figure out what he's good at, what he's not good at, and have some tape. You know what I mean? It's like he needs to play and succeed or play and fail, but he needs to play and no more watching. And unfortunately, it's the NFL, so there's nowhere to play. So it's kind of a weird. The NFL needs a minor league system badly, and Trey Lance is like the absolute number one guy to prove that. But yeah, I do really believe that Trey Lance will eventually figure it out. I really do, because I think football is important to him, and it's not rocket science. It's complicated, but it's not rocket science. And if you want it enough, and you're smart enough, and he is smart enough, it's just a matter of time. But he's got to play at some point, man.
I would like
to play.
When it comes to Kyle, if we could sodium pentothal him and get the real answer out of him, was he more interested, Kyle Shanahan, getting out of the Trey Lance business just to open up the business for Brock Purdy? Or did he really look at the player as I can't extract anything more from him. I've done my best. This is not who I need to work with. And that's why we've got to move on. I'm sure it's a little bit of both, right?
What is your question? Why did they move off of Trey? Is that what you're asking?
Was it contractual? Was it just the feel of the locker room and giving Brock that real opportunity and chance to breathe without him breathing down his neck? Or did Kyle really look at the player and just say, I got nothing to work with here. This is not nearly the raw mound of clay that I thought I was drafting to develop.
I mean, when you look closely at Trey Lance, the arm strength isn't there. He doesn't have great arm strength.
He doesn't have great speed either.
Well, beyond that, I mean, that's obvious. But I mean, he doesn't have the big arm. I mean, he had pretty good arm, but it wasn't an epic arm. It wasn't like this guy had, whoa, look at this guy. So he doesn't have epic arm strength. Then he can't make the layups. So all those layups that Kyle Shanahan puts into an offense, where he's like, before the plays even run, Damon, he's like saying to himself, what's my call on 2nd and 6? Because I know this is going to pick up 4. And then where do I go on 2nd and 6? So in his mind, he's called the first play, and now he's hunting on his sheet for a 2nd and 6 play. But unfortunately, Trey couldn't hit the check down, so now it's 2nd and 10. And that is what pisses off a head coach, is that my 2nd and 6 needs to be 2nd and 6, not 2nd and 10. So, I mean, it's just Trey couldn't play. He wasn't accurate enough with his arm to be able to get all the layups. He missed the layups all the time. Little short pass to the flat, can't make it. Little swing pass out to the back, and can't make that. Throwing the ball at somebody's feet. I mean, just his accuracy or lack of accuracy crushed. And then there wasn't a lot of great arm strength there. And then what you just said, there was no mobility. I mean, and then they drafted him thinking that he was going to be a running quarterback. I mean, that's a terrible plan. I wish they had told me on the draft day that was the plan, because I would have announced right then and there that it was a terrible plan. Because that is a terrible plan. You're going to draft a quarterback to run him. I don't care. I don't care if you have the greatest runner who ever lived. It's the NFL. The defenders are badasses. The defenders are tough and mean and nasty. Right. You're not going to make it in the NFL as a running quarterback. There's no such thing as a running quarterback. Oh, he doesn't pass. He's a runner. What? No. That means he's not good. That means if you're a quarterback that's a runner, not a passer, it means you can't pass. And if you're a quarterback that can't pass, you're not much of a quarterback. So, I mean, it's just that's really it. So I think that Trey Lance needs to go and play probably in Canada and get some momentum going. Find out what you can do and do well and replicate. And then 3 years from now, after he's won 2 Grey Cups and is, figured it out for whatever team he's on, then let's reevaluate and see how he's winning all these Grey Cups. And then we'll take it from there.
Will they have to pay a 25% tariff to import him from Canada? I guess that would be the question that we'll have to ask a few years from now. No tariffs on Sam's. All you got to do is bring a little fistful of dollars down there, and you are going to have one of the best meals that you've had in a very long time. Sam's Chowder House in Half Moon Bay, that lobster roll. Oh, it's so good. The paella, the cioppino, it is all so special. We thank Sam's for being an incredible sponsor. Larry, do you realize that now we are the Bay Area's longest continuously running sports morning show? One of the other bits of news that I did see while I was down in Mexico was that Bonte has left 95.7 The Game's morning show. He's going to pursue a full-time career in TV now, and that's great for him. It's going to give more time with his family, hopefully more cash, and I'm happy for Bonte. I've known him since he was an intern at KNBR. So watching Bonte's career has just always been fantastic, and I'm happy for him. Murph and Mac broke up while you and I have been doing Wake Up. So, Larry, you and I are the longest continuously running sports morning show emanating from the Bay Area. Who would have ever thought it?
Unbelievable.
Oh, how things change. Let's see. So, old man Larry and old man Damon got it going here. While I was in Mexico, Larry, I did a very good job on vacation. I put my phone down. I kept it down. I didn't really pick it up. We'll talk about how I heard about Luka and a few other things that happened on vacation. They're sports related here. But the Senior Bowl went down. Now, this is like sports cocaine for you. And I'm not talking like beignet powdered donuts. This is your sports cocaine. You love the draft more than anybody. Give me your impressions of the Senior Bowl. A standout player or two. What did I miss not following any Senior Bowl coverage this past week?
Well, I mean, the game itself is always, secondary because, some scouts don't even stick around for the game itself.
Right. It's the practice.
And by the way, this one cracks me up from Stelios Kantos. Who sees Garrett available and don't want him? Who sees Garrett available and don't want him? You mean doesn't want him? A person who want to talk about some defensive tackle from never heard from state. In other words, Stelios Kantos doesn't know anybody in college football and only knows Myles Garrett and doesn't know shit about football. Oh, Stelios. Goodbye, Stelios.
Well, might not know much about, football prospects, which makes the importance of tuning into this show even more important for him.
Bye-bye, Stelios. Thanks for coming. All I'll say is the story is kind of one of the stories of the Senior Bowl was sadly the one of the guys who was the best player was the TCU wide receiver Jack Beck, or Betch, I should say. And I don't know if you heard the story, but his brother, who played at Princeton, was killed in New Orleans on New Year's Eve. And so he's been playing with his brother's jersey, sticker on his helmet. And he got the game-winning touchdown on the last play. So, Jack Betch really played well. I mean, you can tell this guy's a tough guy. I don't know if he's Cooper Kupp. We'll see what he runs in the 40. Cooper Kupp didn't run well in the 40. He had a 4.62. But Jack Betch, the wide receiver from TCU, he was the emotional story of the game for sure. But as far as who really stood out in the game, a couple guys really stood out. One was unbelievably, Guy Haberman told me about this guy a couple months ago. And he's a former Cal Bear who transferred to UCLA. His name's Oluwafemi Oladejo. He's a defensive end. He just totally dominated. He didn't even play. He played middle linebacker at Cal. And then he goes to UCLA, and they played him at middle linebacker. And then this year, they're like, we'll try him at defensive end. He's been awesome. And then he dominated all the practices, dominated in the game. I think he had 2 sacks. Just a tone setter, just an absolute tone setter. Oluwafemi Oladejo, just an incredible edge rusher with tons of speed. He was amazing. LSU is the most amazing factory of talent of all time. I mean, there's dudes at LSU that are going to be great that just nobody ever notices. They just blend in with all the incredible talent they have there. They have a defensive lineman.
Great players to get reps at LSU.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's truly amazing. They develop a different caliber of athlete. Savion Jones, a defensive lineman from LSU, 6'6", 280 pounds. Is he a tackle? Is he an end?
Yeah. Where do you play him?
I mean, they lined him up in both. He's an edge rusher, but he's 280. But he's strong enough where you can play him inside. He can play defensive tackle. He dominated. I mean, dominated. Swim moves, all kinds of, in the backfield. I mean, he just dominated. He was really, really amazing. There's also a defensive end from Arkansas named Landon Jackson, who, man, if the Niners could get this guy in the first round, maybe you move back a few spots. This guy had a sack. He had a forced fumble, the strip sack. I mean, he's really a great player. He's another gigantic defensive end. He's 6'4", 6'5", 280, 285. Big guy, but he looked tremendous. And there were a couple other guys that really stood out. Georgia's got a safety named Dan Jackson who had a great day. K-State's got a corner named Jacob Parrish who was amazing. He made a couple of huge hits. And then there's this quarterback who finished up. There are 2 quarterbacks that looked really good in the game, or 3. Riley Leonard, who's from Mobile, really played well. I think he was like 6 of 7. Tyler Shugg, the Louisville quarterback who played 7 years of college football, started at Oregon, Texas Tech, Louisville. He had a great game for sure. But then this kid, Seth Hennigan, who played at Memphis, finished up, and he's clutch, man. And he played great. This guy was 44-2 in high school and really clutch player at Memphis. And he came off the bench and really finished strong. So there were a bunch of people. Eugene Asante, the linebacker from Auburn, flew around, made a ton of plays. Aeneas Peebles, the defensive end from Va-Tech, had a huge day. David Walker from Central Arkansas had a huge day. So those were the guys that stood out in the game. But it was a lot about Jack Betch and the guy who dominated the Senior Bowl who didn't play in the game was Tez Johnson. He dominated the practices. This is the tiny little receiver for Oregon. He's like 5'8", and he's 150 pounds. I mean, he's one of the smallest players we've seen come out in the draft in a long time. And he totally dominated. Like, nobody could stay anywhere within a country mile of that kid. So he was incredible. And then one guy from the Friday night or Thursday night East-West Shrine game, the Cal corner, Noel Williams, who had a tremendous year this year. I think he had like 8 interceptions, or he had a ton of interceptions. He was among the league leaders in interceptions. Noel Williams would be a fantastic mid-round pick for the 49ers. He played in the Shrine game and was terrific. I think he had a pick. He had a couple passes defensed. He was great all week in the practices, and then he did it in the game. So those are the all-star guys who stood out for the most part.
You think anybody, jumped from a third to a first round? Do you think there's any major movement? Did any one prospect, just redefine what the league is about to think of them?
That's a good one. Let me just look at this list real quick. There was a defensive lineman from Toledo in this Senior Bowl named Darius Alexander, who I think coming into the process, they had him down as like a 5th-round pick. And by the end of the week, people were talking about, man, this guy could be a 2nd-round pick. And then Anthony Belton, the big offensive tackle from NC State, a lot of people thought he was a 3rd or 4th-round pick. He had a great, incredible week blocking. And I think he probably helped himself immeasurably with his week. So I would say Belton might be a 2nd-round pick. Yeah, I don't know that anybody vaulted into the 1st round off of this thing.
No massive screw ups, Larry. No DUIs around senior week. Nobody got themselves moving down draft boards because they screwed up at the Senior Bowl.
No, I mean that usually most of the All-Star game. I mean, the scouts have their grades, and their grades are usually set before the end of the season. And what happens in the Senior Bowl, the Combine, and it shouldn't change their grades that much. That's all. And if it does, man, you're probably not doing it the right way. Because then you're putting I'll say this though, this is the one week, the Senior Bowl week, the East-West Shrine week. At least you're being swayed by a football game. It's a football game, football practices and a football game. The rest of the process is about, hey man, we asked him some questions, or, he was part of a workout with 7 other wide receivers, or, he in sweats, he looked good at the Combine. It's they're not football. It's not a football environment. So it's like you can kind of make some mistakes if you go too much off the Combine. I mean, there's always guys who are awesome at the Combine, and then they weren't awesome before the Combine, and then people are like, they draft them, and Mike Mamula. I remember Mike Mamula. There was this defensive end who played for Boston College, and he was pretty good, right? Pretty good at Boston College. Wasn't great. He was pretty good. He went to the Combine. He ran some crazy 40, and he went really, really high. And then in the NFL, he was just pretty good. Because it's not you're a pretty good player who ran a great 40. You're not a great player who's, had a pretty good career. And he got drafted because of his great 40, and he was the player that he always was.
Dude, you're talking about the all-time Tony Mandarich club, right? I mean, Tony Mandarich out of Michigan State was a guy who played well in college. No one ever said Tony Mandarich wasn't good, but he went to the Combine. And he redefined what a good Combine workout was. And Tony Mandarich was he the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft, right? And he was a massive bust. Massive.
Well, he was, first of all, they had testing for drugs back then that he was taking. So he couldn't take the drugs that he was taking out of season, in season. So he showed up to camp at 323 pounds, but he finished the year at 277 pounds. He just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller because he couldn't take those drugs. So yeah, he was just
becoming a bike rider. He's just shrinking. He's riding.
This guy says, Larry, what do you think of the Canadian quarterback El Gersma? It's interesting. I think he's a 73% completion guy. He's pretty accurate. He doesn't look very mobile, that's for sure. He's not mobile, but he's accurate. I didn't see a huge arm, but I definitely saw an accurate arm. He definitely looks like he could put it on the numbers. Very accurate passer.
Canadian quarterback Taylor Elgzerma proves he belongs among the NFL's best draft talent at senior game. Okay.
Yeah, I mean he's I think he's like a 73% completion guy, and when you watched him throw the ball, I mean he puts it right on the receiver. So there's good accuracy there.
He played what, in Ontario? Where did he play?
I don't know. There's Canadian universities. I mean, you can play collegiately in Canada. I'm sure he did. I'm sure he played collegiately in Canada somewhere. Every single one of these players has to be fully investigated because that's it. You never know. You never know. Do you remember who was the guy? Remember Eric Swan? Played for gigantic defensive tackle, and he played for the Arizona Cardinals.
I remember. I remember the name.
He never played college football. He played semi-pro football for like the Memphis Showboats or something, right? And she showed up this year, the year of the draft, and he got some waiver to play in one of the All-Star games. And people were like, Eric Swan, wow. This guy didn't really play college football. He played semi-pro. Damon, I don't know how many years he played, but he was awesome. I mean, you can look him up. I think he might have had a couple of awesome years. I think he might have made a Pro Bowl. Let me see here. Eric Swan was his name, but he was the non-college player playing, playing in the NFL. And let's see, Eric Swan, yeah. Swan.
There you go. You got Terradome saying Eric Swan was built.
Yeah, Eric Swan. Yeah, here it is. He's 54 years old, so he's born in 1970. So he's basically right around the 88 draft. He was drafted by the Phoenix Cardinals in the first round of the 91 draft. He was drafted from the Bay State Titans, a semi-pro team in Massachusetts. He never played college football.
Can you imagine if that happened now? Could you imagine if somebody reached like that in the first round and what Mel Kiper and all the, oh my God, it would be.
He never played college football. I mean, but Damon, not only was this guy, he was 6'5", 317 pounds. Okay. And he played for the Cardinals. He was a two-time Pro Bowler in the NFL. He was a Pro Bowler in both 95 and 96. Yeah. I mean, this guy was really, really good. And then he had a knee injury, and that was it. The Cardinals signed him to a $25 million contract.
You know how hard it is
5 years.
Walk on to an NFL team, basically.
He went from a semi-pro football league to being drafted in the first round of the 91 draft, and then nobody even regretted it because he was so dominant. This guy was just a man-child. Yeah, he went to Western Harnett High School in North Carolina, Wake Tech College, then dropped out to play for semi-pro football, Bay State Titans, and then the Cardinals drafted him, and he was a bad, bad man.
I wonder what kind of caliber of football was being played by the Bay State Titans. Like, would they have been able to beat a good MAC team?
I guarantee you his film was awesome.
His film was just
he was
Big
just
Ten teams. Anyway,
he was just ragdolling dudes. I'm sure.
Anyway, speaking of names you might not have expected to come back to the NFL as quickly as they have, I think Pete Carroll is on top of that list. He takes the job with the Raiders, and then look who else is now joining him in Las Vegas. Pete Carroll adding Chip Kelly as his offensive coordinator. Chip Kelly, who left UCLA's head coaching job to become Ohio State's offensive coordinator. They win a national championship. Chip Kelly's bringing his services back to the NFL. Larry, get your protein shakes ready for the Chip Kelly era in Las Vegas.
One of the worst hires of all time. What are the Raiders doing?
Here's the thing. As an offensive coordinator, I don't know what he is in the NFL. As a head coach, he was a flippin' disaster. The only thing Chip Kelly did well was the PR work around Colin Kaepernick's taking a knee. That's the only aspect that he did well. Chip Kelly was good about how he handled all of that. The rest of it was a mess.
Yeah, and the only thing that he did was like, hey, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with this. Yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm cool.
He stayed out of the conversation. He did.
I'm cool. Yeah, it's cool. I'm cool. It's cool. It's all right. It's all right. It's cool. It's cool. I mean, he didn't do shit. I mean, come on. Chip Kelly is one of the most overrated coaches of all time. There is no innovation. He's calling mediocre to poor plays quickly. I mean, that's your innovation.
Oh, hey, here's the thing. Wait a minute. Larry, I'm not going to allow you to rewrite the total Chip Kelly history because you didn't like what he did with the 49ers. For a minute in time there, Chip Kelly was among the most innovative, creative, embracing a level of football tempo that no one else embraced when he was at Oregon. That's what got him hired in Philadelphia. Chip Kelly in Philadelphia looked like he was onto something there for a heartbeat. Didn't last very long, but Chip Kelly was a little bit better.
What's his innovation?
Career. Chip Kelly started running football plays faster than anyone had ever imagined it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. But the plays were terrible. I mean, his plays were bad. I watched him with the 49ers. His plays were bad.
Right, I'm talking about
and here's why it's such a terrible hire. It's a terrible hire because the Ohio State Buckeyes are not a product of great play calling. The Ohio State Buckeyes, they have two running backs that are going to go in the second round of the draft. They have 3 wide receivers that are going to go in the top 10 picks of the draft. They have 3 offensive linemen that are going to be picked. They have,
but Larry, that's also every Ohio State team ever. So like they win the national championship every year. They always have that amount of talent in Columbus.
No, they don't. They don't always have what they have this year. They don't always have 2 NFL running backs who are gradegraduating. They had Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins. They have Emeka Egbuka. They are about talent. They're not about. I didn't even see any creativity offensively. I really didn't. I don't think they were. They have the best talent in all of college football. They couldn't even get him off in the last 3 or 4 games outside of once. I mean, Jeremiah Smith had 1 game in the playoffs that was awesome, and he had 3 games where he was quiet. He's like the most dominating receiver, freshman receiver maybe we've ever seen. He basically didn't do a whole lot. Chip Kelly had just awesome weapons, and he just, now he's going to go to the Raiders. They have no quarterback. Watch how bad the Raiders are going to be. The Raiders are going to be bad. The Raiders' offense is going to be bad. Chip Kelly's going to get fired. Chip Kelly's not a good football coach. He talks a bunch of nonsense. He had all kinds of ridiculous ideas that NFL players are not going to go for. They're not going for blood tests and all kinds of crazy weigh-ins. And he wanted these guys. He wanted these guys to just basically submit to any kind of testing so he could determine their. I mean, all kinds of blood work, and it was just it was like a.
You want to know if everyone's electrolytes were good, Larry? He's monitoring protein samples.
Chip Kelly's so overrated. So overrated. One of the most overrated coaches I think I've ever seen in my life. He's only done well in a college setting when he has an championship.
He won a national championship as a head coach. He did.
He's only won one. He's only wins in college football when he has an overwhelming stack deck. That's it.
But we agree.
It's the only time. You don't have that in the NFL. You don't have an overwhelming stack deck. You're going to have to actually call plays that work. And I saw his. You're talking about a guy who did the pregame and postgame during the Chip Kelly era. I talked to him before and after every game. he never had anything to say.
No, he's not.
And when they lost games, he just broke into this rapid fire, almost like a comedian. He was talking so fast. He is just a fast talking nothing. I mean, he is nothing. There ain't nothing there. The plays that he calls are just so high school Harry calls. He's not a big time offensive coordinator. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that the Raiders wanted to go in this direction. And I think it's going to fail miserably. I don't see innovation. I see a guy who played a pretty fast pace, but even so, there's right and wrong times to play pace. He just played it. Just period. We're just playing fast. Well, but wait a second. What about when you want to slow it down? There is no slowdown. You just play fast. You just go fast.
He also invented the fake cramp on your defensive lineman to stop the other team from playing too fast. It was also a Chip Kelly innovation. Wow. So,
but seriously, I would say, is it innovative to play fast? Then is it innovative to play slow? If you only play one tempo, are you being innovative, or are you just playing at a tempo you want to play at?
At the time he invented the play faster than everyone else, it was regarded as innovative.
But if it was innovative, wouldn't people have copied it and succeeded with it?
Well, they have in many ways. Football's played it more plays or more snaps than before Chip Kelly started coaching at Oregon. You're seeing more offensive plays getting called, I think, all over the place. Chip left his fingerprints on how the game was played a little bit. And I'll say this about the Raiders.
But who's copied it? Is anybody copied Chip Kelly? No. Chip Kelly has what you're talking? You're saying he won a national championship. You're talking about at Oregon?
Yes.
Okay, what year was that?
It was like the first year they went to the CBC, whatever the playoffs were that year.
What year do you think that was?
Oh, it was it was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, if the guy won a national championship a long time ago, then how come he's not so highly coveted until today?
He won a national championship this year, too, as an offensive coordinator. I just think as an offensive
mind. With the most talented team in America.
Larry, every team that's going to win has the talent. Like we just talked about Salah clapping hard, Nick Sorensen.
This was an unbelievable.
It's always talent for everyone. You can't say talent matters over here, but doesn't matter over there.
I know, but I mean, it's like saying that the Detroit Lions are winning because of Dan Campbell. No, they're not. They're winning because of Brad Holmes. They're winning because of talent. Chip Kelly, from what I've been told from people who know him really, really well, is not a very good recruiter either, as far as, he's not a guy who...
Oregon never did win a national championship, did they?
No, they lost to Auburn. I was going to say they lost to Cam Newton.
I'm sorry. Oregon has not won a national championship.
But I mean, even so, when they contended for a national championship, it was so long ago. If he really were... My point is just this. If Chip Kelly really were innovative, he would have been copied by now. He hasn't been. If he really were innovative, he would have had high-profile jobs. He's had to backslide and take what he could get. I don't know. I think he's overrated. I think he's a guy who talks so fast after he loses. I think he has so little presence in front of. I mean, the guys may like him, but
he's not much of a personality. He hated dealing with alumni as a head coach. That's kind of why he left Oregon. It's why he left UCLA.
But he can only win in college because that's the only place where you can have that kind of personnel advantage.
Chip Kelly is you're automatically going to win with a great offense hire, but we'll see. We'll see how he innovates. And I tell you right now, the Raiders with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly sound like they got more credibility sitting in their coaching room than they've had in years. So I actually think the Raiders couple of hires and the Chip Kelly hire is interesting. I'll give it that much. I will give it that much. We'll see what happens.
Let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about this for a second. So the Raiders decided that they wanted to have a veteran defensive coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why the hell wouldn't you hire Steve Spagnuolo? He interviewed for head coaching jobs. He was available in this coaching cycle. Why wouldn't you go hire Spags? Why would you hire Pete Carroll, who's been done for 3 years, instead of Spags, who is in your division beating you right now and is probably the cutting-edge defensive coordinator in the sport? If you're going to hire an old defensive guy, hire Spags. They didn't. They hired Pete Carroll. So I don't know. Maybe they couldn't get Spags. Maybe they offered the job to Spags. Or maybe they're just not that good at this and they didn't offer the job to Spags. But Spags was out there and interviewed. It wasn't like, he wasn't available. No, he was available. And he is available. And he did interview for some jobs. He just didn't get any. So I don't understand that.
You know what he is? I mean, it's kind of like Eric Bieniemy 2.0, right? Remember when Eric Bieniemy was Andy Reid's right-hand man and everyone said this is going to be, a future head coach for sure? That hasn't happened at all.
That's another baffling one. I mean, he got hired this weekend too, I believe.
Yeah, I think
Eric Bieniemy's only thing about Eric Bieniemy is that when you're Andy Reid's offensive coordinator, you don't get to call the plays. So what are you? You're like an offensive guy in the room, but he's calling the plays. I mean, that's a big part of being an offensive coordinator is like, hey, what kind of plays are you going to call and who, sequence and, how are you going to do it? And it's like when you work for Reid, he's that guy. It's like working for Shanahan.
Well, and Steve Spagnuolo, he has worn the crown before, and he did not wear it well. Steve Spagnuolo was the head coach of the Rams from 2009 through 2011, and he got to the New York Giants in 2017, where he went, I believe, interim head coach for a minute there. But Spagnuolo, as a head coach in the NFL, is 11-41.
Yeah. But, I mean, what was Pete Carroll after his first go-arounds with the Jets and Patriots? He wasn't very good bad either.
Right. And
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, what was Belichick, before he got to New England? Didn't he coach in Cleveland and struggled? So, I mean, it's just, some of these guys, it takes some time. But I personally think that if you're going to go veteran defensive coach and Steve Spagnuolo's out there, God, man, you got to hire him. That's the guy to hire.
You would think so, but Pete Carroll probably has more energy than you and I do at 20 years older than us. Pete Carroll is a guy that I think walks into a room and Mark Davis, is probably blown away. But I don't know if Steve Spagnuolo is blowing anybody away. Clearly not, or maybe he's just saying it'd be silly to walk away from something that is, historic that is happening right now. So he doesn't want to go anywhere. The money's right. He likes barbecue. I don't know.
I don't know what the deal is, but I'll say this. If I owned an NFL team, I would find out because Spagnuolo is that good of a coach.
Well, Vic Fangio and Spagnuolo are probably going to determine what happens on Sunday more than the head coaches in the game. This is going to be a masterclass defensive coordinator battle coming up in this Super Bowl on Sunday. By the way, can I invite everyone to the Halfway Club who is watching? If you're in San Francisco, you don't have anything, you got plans for Super Bowl Sunday, maybe you're alone, you don't want to be alone, you want to come and hang out. We are getting together. We got the back room at the Halfway Club. The game is going to be on. We're going to have food and drink specials and a whole bunch of people who are great football fans who watch Wake Up all the time, who watch the Plus, who watch the Krug Show. And Larry, maybe we even get to see you that day. Come on out. If you and Kevin aren't busy, want to come on over to the city and watch the game, you want to make that roll, we'd love to have you come over the bridge and hang out with us. It's going to be a really good time. It's amazing. The Super Bowl is here, which means
not sure yet on what the plans are for Super Bowl Sunday, but if we can make it, we will.
All right. Well, can't ask for more than that. I got to tell you, it was awfully fun to get away, Larry. It was awfully fun to get away. Had a great time. Look, fish is not for everybody, but if you do like them, seeing them on a beach in Mexico is just fantastic. Couple of things happened, though, while I was down there that I thought I need to tell Larry about this come Monday. So, Larry, I've covered the Giants for like 20 years. Never claimed to be a Giants fan. I don't rock any Giants gear. I made a total freaking rookie mistake. And as I was packing to go to Mexico, I totally forgot a hat. I'm gonna be on the beach. I'm gonna be on the. I'm gonna be on the pool all day. You can't forget a hat. You're on vacation. You don't want to take a shower before you go to breakfast. You just want to throw a hat on and go to breakfast. I totally screwed up. And Jillian says, "Well, wait a minute. I brought an extra hat. She had a Giants hat, so I wore, for the first time in my life, a San Francisco Giants hat all the time. The amount of disdainful, pitiful looks that I got from every single Dodger fan that I walked past was amazing. I mean, Dodger fans were ready to just shit all over me the second I walked into a room. It was like they had a Giants hat tracker on, like, oh, I'm going to go make fun of that guy. I'm going to go ask him how he's looking forward to baseball season. Looking forward to spring training? A Dodger fan would be like, spring training starts soon, huh? Oh, Larry. Oh, Dodger fans were just feeling themselves when they saw that Giants hat on me. And I was like, hey, man, I just needed a hat for the weekend. I was like disavowing myself. I didn't even go into like I used to cover, I cover sports in the Bay Area, blah, blah, blah. Like I just ducked out of all those conversations, because what can you say to a Dodger fan who is rightfully feeling like the king of the world, because they are?
How about this? The Giants came west from New York City in 1958.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They have not missed a season since. They've played they've played every year since 1958. Okay. There has not been any time off. How many times the Giants, their incredible, proud franchise, and their deep pockets. They're one of the haves in baseball right now. They're one of the richest teams. They have a stadium that's been paid off for a decade. That every penny that comes out of that stadium is profit, pure profit. How many times have the Giants gone to the playoffs in consecutive years?
Since 1958.
Since they came west, yep, 1958. If you had to guess.
Consecutive playoff years. Well, let's remember, during the Bochy feast era, there was also famine, right? There were 2 years where they didn't.
So how many years? I'll give you a hint. None during the Bochy years.
Right. So you wouldn't be asking me if this were an easy answer. So how about twice, Larry? I mean, it's a small number, I'm guessing.
One time. One time. The Giants went to the playoffs in 2002. They won the world. They went to the World Series and lost it. And then under Dusty Baker. Then they chased Dusty out. They hired Felipe Alou. They won 103 games the next year, and they went to the playoffs. 2002 and 2003, the only time the Giants have gone to the playoffs in consecutive years. And I bring that up because the Dodgers have gone to the playoffs now for 10 straight years.
That's unbelievable.
10 straight years.
First of all,
I think it's 10 straight years they've won the division. They might have gone to the playoffs even more than that, but I think it's 10 straight years they've won the division.
That's unbelievable. That's
10 straight years they've gone to the playoffs. The Giants have never been to the playoffs even in 2 years in a row, but one time in 60 years. I mean, it's like, so, the Giants are they a rival of the Dodgers? In name only.
67 years. You've got one consecutive playoff appearance. That's fucking pathetic.
One where they went to the playoffs in consecutive years. And the Dodgers have gone to consecutive World Series. 76 and 77. Lost them both, but they went to two in a row. But they've gone to the playoffs for 10 straight years. They've won the NL West for 10 straight years.
You can hand the Dodgers.
And the Giants are rich. And the latest thing that's the biggest joke, and I'm about to do a video on it today. The Giants don't want Pete Alonso. The Giants, the home of the franchise that called Willie McCovey theirs, doesn't. When the Giants come to town, it's bye bye baby. They sung songs about giant first baseman home run hitters. The Giants, the franchise that had Will Clark and Willie McCovey, doesn't want Pete Alonso because what? He's too expensive? What, 3 years, $90 million is going to break you? You don't want Pete Alonso? And you're telling me because what, he's not good defensively, but what, Bryce Eldridge is going to be good defensively? I've been told by the people that know Bryce Eldridge that he's one of the worst defensive first basemen anybody has ever seen. That he's never going to be a first baseman, that he's going to be a full-time DH for the Giants. And yet you're not going to go after Pete Alonso?
Right, guy hit 34 home runs last year, and everyone admits it was kind of a down year, right? I mean, just go sign.
It's bad. It's bad. It's really bad. I mean, it's like Pete Alonso's out there. He's a free agent. His market has not materialized. The Giants right now, I mean, the Giants have won a World Series out of the wild card. You're not going to beat the Dodgers, but guess what? If you had Pete Alonso, guess what he would be? Day one, he walks into the clubhouse. He is your most popular player. He's your most marketable player. He's the player that people will be wearing jerseys and jerseys and Pete Alonso and the polar bear. And, I went to go see Alonso. And
you get polar bear hats instead of panda hats. You get polar bear hats, Larry.
This team, you built this stadium on the back of a power hitter. The stadium that is there. The wealth that you have is there because of a power hitter. And now you don't want a power hitter? When the Giants right now, they're okay at third. They're okay at short. They're okay behind the dish. They're okay in the outfield. I could see them needing an extra bat or so in the outfield, but they could use the outfield's okay. The rotation, even without Snell, is going to be okay. The pen's going to be okay. They're going to run Wilmer Flores and Lamont Wade at first base.
Yeah, no, it's not going to work.
Go sign Pete Alonso, you cheap asses. Unbelievable.
I'll say this, for whatever reason.
And if it's just cheap ass, by the way, go get him.
If you got no problem spending money, they're not running back to get into bed with Pete Alonso either.
Who? The Mets?
The Mets. This has been a very contentious
and if it's about money, Damon, I'm fine. Okay, if you don't want to spend the money, if you're the Giants, first of all, it's criminal, but fine. Then go trade for Andrew Vaughn. Go trade for Vladdy Guerrero Jr. You have Marco Luciano blocked. You've got young pitchers in your system that have value. Trade 3 or 4 prospects for a Vladdy Jr. Put him at first base and let's go. The Giants. It's like we were sold that the current Giant ownership group were genius marketers, and when they took over the Giants initially, they proved it. They took Candlestick, they renovated it, they signed Barry Bonds, they made themselves relevant in the last decade. They offset about $100 million of losses with the smart decisions they made. They built this new stadium. They got themselves a great World Series run of 3 World Series. And it's like, now, what are you going to do? I mean,
Larry,
I don't know what they think. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know why they think there's tons of people that are going to support this thoroughly mediocre, starless product. They cannot hit. They cannot score runs.
Lots of cutaways to Kate Upton in the audience is going to be part of, I think, the marketing plan this year when Verlander's pitching.
I love Buster, but what's Buster done? What's Buster done? I mean, let's be completely honest.
Willie Adames,
and old Verlander. That's it.
Okay, yeah, no, it's fine. I don't think Willie Adames is going to ruin the franchise, but I don't think he's going to be your cornerstone of anything either.
But that's it. You thought you were a 1 move away. You just lost a 20 home run hitter to the Dodgers. You just lost your ace pitcher to the Dodgers. You replaced your young ace with a 40-year-old guy coming off his worst career year. And you have no offensive power at all in the middle of the lineup. I mean, you're going to hit Bailey, who should hit 7, 8, or 9. You're going to hit him 5. You can't hit. Somebody, they need help, man. They need help.
They do need help. Larry, anyone who wants to help us, it's real simple. You take care of our wonderful sponsor, Sam's Chatterhouse. You like and subscribe to the video that you're watching right now on both of these channels. Do it over on The Krug Show. Do it over on Damon Bruce Plus if you would. And Larry, we certainly always appreciate those who want to support the show by offering up super chats. We got a few of them today. Let's get into them.
Joseph Ernberg says, what is a good bookend on a D? What is a good bookend on the D line? Should we make any big trades this season at all, or just strictly stick to the draft? When is the next deep playoff run? Well, I think the next deep playoff run could be as soon as next year. I mean, I don't think you're gonna have to wait long for that. As far as what's a good bookend defensive end, there's. First of all, I mean, it really depends what kind of front you have. But I mean, you have Nick Bosa. This is a great defensive line draft. I mean, if you had the high enough pick, you draft Abdul Carter. Mike Green.
James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee is a real player.
Who's that?
James Pierce Jr. James Pierce Jr.
Yeah, he's skinny, but he's really talented. Mike Green, the defensive end from Marshall, had an amazing week in Mobile, just whipping people and just mowing them over. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's a monster. Shermar Stewart, the Texas A&M defensive end. Kyle Kennard from South Carolina was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He's amazing. The Boston College kid, Donovan Ezeraku. He's long arms, incredible player. Jack Sawyer, you saw him for Ohio State. There's Braden Swinson from LSU.
Let me tell you, Jack
my
Sawyer's
favorite,
never buy himself a drink in the state of Ohio in his life.
My favorite edge rusher is Oluwafemi Oladipo from UCLA, formerly of Cal, and I love David Walker from Central Arkansas. Those are my two favorite edge rushers. And then this new BJ Green from Colorado, who played for Dion, an incredible player. The guy who played for Damon's team, Mikhail Kamara. If I don't know if he's coming out, but if he's coming out,
Larry, I think he's coming back.
He is coming out.
No, I think he's coming back to Bloomington.
No, he's coming back. Yeah. Because I don't see him on the list anymore, and he was on the list a few weeks ago. But I would say the guy who's got to be investigated, or to me, if you said who's an ideal edge rushers for the Niners in this draft, I'm going to give you 3 names, and they're all these like super intriguing guys. One is Landon Jackson, Arkansas, 6'5", about 280 pounds. He would be day one. Him and Bosa would wreck shop. That's number 1. Number 2, BYU has a kid named Tyler Batty, and he plays so damn hard. I mean, this kid, 6'5", 270 like Bosa, and he just plays like with his hair on fire, Damon. It's just so incredible. And then Savion Jones, who I already mentioned to you from LSU. Those are the 3 guys. Savion Jones, Tyler Batty, Landon Jackson. And why do I say those guys? Just because the 49ers are not like a lot of teams. They don't like 230, 240, 250-pound edge rushers. They want 270-pound. They want bigger guys. So I just gave you 3 bigger guys. And Landon Jackson would be a stretch at 11. But you know what? If you want to trade from 11 into the 20s, garner some extra picks and pick him at 20, I think that would probably be a great plan. I think that would be a fantastic plan. Fuji Simeon says, what would Garrett cost? A first and a future second? No, I think what he's going to cost is multiple ones and probably a day 2 pick. So probably 2 1s and a 3 and a 5 and
two 1s and a player. I mean, it
might be a player. I don't know about player though, Damon, because the one thing about the reason that Cleveland is so screwed is the Deshaun Watson contract. So they're
reasonably priced player.
It would have to be. I mean, if you could give, like, let's just say Drake Jackson had been playing great, right? You could probably trade a young player like Drake Jackson and a couple firsts and a second and something like that.
Like if you really wanted to,
but he's not playing great.
Creative, a first rounder, a second rounder, and Ricky Pearsall.
It's going to have to be somebody who's playing well. I mean, some good young player, for sure. And who knows what Cleveland needs, to be honest. When they're going to need another edge rusher. I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think it's realistic. I don't think the 49ers should think that way at all. I think the Niners ought to be thinking the opposite of that, which is instead of let's take all of our assets and make them into one guy, they should be thinking, let's diversify our assets. Let's trade Debo for picks. Let's trade 11 down for more picks. Let's wind up with 15 guys because you're going to need a 15-man draft class. I mean, you need a kicker. You need a number 2 quarterback. You need another running back. You need another receiver for sure because you don't have anything at receiver this year hardly. You need at least a tight end, maybe 2. You need at least 1 offensive lineman, probably 2. I mean, that's 7 players. We haven't even got to defense. You need at least a defensive tackle or 2. You need at least a defensive end. You need at least 2 linebackers. You need a free safety, and you need a corner. So, I mean, people are like, they don't need a 15. Yes, they do.
No, they do. They really do.
15-man draft class.
Especially when you look at future math and Brock Purdy's number. It's not just this year that you got to work around. It's that number going forward that you're going to need to work around. And Purdy's number will be more digestible in the first year of his new extension than it will be further on. We all know that. So, yeah, it's a big draft. It's a huge draft.
You need volume this time around. Volume it's a volume, and it's a good draft for volume. Doc Holliday, member for 12 months. Greetings.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you. It's over on my side. He's been a year-long member. Thank you very much, Doc.
Fuji Simeon says, Larry had me laughing from his Philly fans rant with Paulie a few days ago. Haha, Larry also throwing shade at Camden, New Jersey, LOL.
Camden catching strays, huh?
Well, Camden's just the roughest place there is. But we were talking about what is wrong with Eagles fans. It's like I'm picking the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, but I really don't want to because I hate their fans so much. Their fans are so loathsome. Their fans are so low grade. Their fans are so trashy. I mean, their fans the other day pulled this guy's hat. Did you see that? The Commander guy walking out and they pulled his hat off and the guy turned around to get his hat and the guy like, well, you want to fight? And it's like, Jesus, dude. I mean, can you just let people walk to their goddamn car? I mean, my God.
Right.
Philly fans are embarrassing. And if you know anything about Philly, you know they have a gigantic New York City inferiority complex. You got a lot of people who are just angry at the world, and it's pathetic. Iceman says, race thing was the talking point of your boy Grant. Race thing? I have no idea.
We were talking about Trey Lance and Purdy, I think.
Oh, gotcha. Fuji Simeon, Larry Damon, would you rather go through your whole life completely bald or have hair but can only have it cut and styled like Mark Davis's hair?
10 out of 10 times. I would rather have a bald head than what is X marks the spot of the worst hairstyle any grown man has ever had.
Poor Mark.
Bald is great compared to that.
It depends what your head looks like. I mean, it's all about bald. I mean, if you have a good shaped head and the right skin tone, man, bald can look good. I mean, Robert Salah is a good looking bald guy.
Yes. You need to be appropriately
Tony Ryan, our friend, Tony Ryan's a good looking bald guy, but I would not be a particularly good looking bald guy. I don't know if you would be either, Damon.
I've shaved. I have done like we're all playing college football, shave your head. And I looked so much like frickin' Private Pile from frickin' Garden from Full Metal Jacket. It was just awful. Yeah, I'm look at it this way.
How long did it take to grow back, by the way?
It's I don't know, about a year. It looked like everything was back to normal.
What year did you do it? Were you in high school?
It was like freshman year of college. Yeah. When I was at Iona before I even got to IU, when I was playing Division II, 1AA college football.
One more deal here. Fuji Simeon. Since you're talking about baseball, Dodgers owners committed $100 million to fire relief. That is slightly less than what the Pirates spent on payroll.
Yeah,
Wow.
the Dodgers owner did drop 9 figures of generosity on fire relief efforts, and I did see it automatically compared to other major league team payrolls. The Dodgers will spend more money on LA fire relief recovery than I think the Rays, the A's, the Pirates, several other teams are spending on their major league payroll.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I will say this about the Dodgers. If you just take away the labels, right? The Dodgers, the Yankees, whatever, Steinbrenner back in the 70s, and just have a philosophical conversation. Hey, I have a business owner, and his business does very, very well. And his business is producing a lot of revenue. And he's turning around and taking that revenue, and he's putting it back into his business. And that's all I'm telling you about my friend, the businessman. Do you think he's a good businessman? And most people would say, yeah, he's a good businessman. He's running a business. His business has to be good because it's profitable. And then he's turning around and he's taking the profits and he's pouring them back into his business. Damn right. He sounds like a very good businessman. And that's what the Dodgers are. They're very good businessmen. They have a profit, and they're pouring their profit back into their team. So, like, when you look at it that way, it's hard to get mad at it. I'm not mad at the Dodgers. I'm mad at baseball for having a system that allows you to defer $700 million and also, there's no cap, but there's no floor. There's no incentive for the poor teams to spend. There's no de-incentive for the rich teams not to. It's just competitive balance in the sport. And it's like a lot of people will be like, well, look at baseball. It's got great competitive balance. Look at all the different teams that win. But it's like, okay, that's one way of looking at it. Look at the different World Series winner. But look at the same teams that keep qualifying for the playoffs. I would say this. It would be like me arguing that college football is got great diversity of champions because, Alabama won and then Georgia won and then, this year Ohio State won. But then when you back away, Damon, and you realize, wait a second, the playoffs, now it's a 12-team playoff, but in the 4-team playoff, it was basically the same 4 teams.
Yeah.
And
over and over and over. And
right. That's the problem right there. It's not that there's one team. It's that there's 4 teams in college football that just take turns dominating. And even in this year's playoffs, like, I loved Indiana. They had a great year, but they had to play on the road in South Bend, and all those home teams won. So, just the football playoff, baseball's issue is that the difference between the top spending team and the bottom spending team, the net difference is now over $250 million.
And we also have, you can go back year after year after year, and a lot of money spent does not always correlate on successful year. And by the way, it's amazing how often the San Francisco Giants are the team that is fucking up this equation because of all the money they spent on an unexciting, unimpressive major league team. But you can directly correlate who's going to the playoffs with dollars spent on their opening day roster. Like, it's not a through straight line, but it's nearly a straight through line. The 10 playoff teams, 8 of them have the top 10 payrolls, so that's the way it works.
There are exceptions, but they're just that.
Right.
Exceptions. And it's, baseball, I'm very frustrated as a Giants fan, even though I'm going to spring training and I'm excited for baseball season.
You just be happy the games are back and baseball's back. We love the game.
Yeah,
I love the game being
I love
on.
the game. I love spring training.
I love listening to the game on the radio. I love listening to John Miller and Kruk and Kipe and Fleming. I love baseball in my summer. I love that ballpark.
Right.
But holy shit, the way that they're going about, putting lineups into that ballpark is still hard to see how and why it's going to work or what the real plan is. Yeah. What is the plan? Anyways, Larry, that's it. That's our show.
Oh, I got one more. Obviously we didn't touch on the NBA stuff, but we should probably hit on the NBA before we get out of here. Luka traded, De'Aaron Fox traded, Jimmy Butler says no to the Warriors. What happened?
I can tell you this. So I'm walking out of the fish show in Mexico, and there's a lot of sports fans who are Fish fans, because Fish is a band that almost has stats that you can track. You can get really geeky about how long has this song been played, how many years, how many blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of sports statistics attached to Fish fandom when it comes to tracking things. So there's a big crossover between Fish fans and sports fans. And literally, we're walking out of the concert Saturday night, and we're walking past the pools and the beach and bars, and the club is still thumping music for people to keep the party going after the show. And I hear somebody saying, Luka traded. And I was like, what? But, I'm high. I'm drunk. We're partying. I'm dancing with my wife at the beach. I'm not really listening to that. I'm like, that doesn't sound, there's no way Luka Doncic got fucking traded. I overheard something that didn't happen. Then I heard another one. Luka traded to the Lakers. I'm like, what? What, huh? And that can't be true. There's no way that's true. I don't have my phone on me. It's back in the hotel room. No way. That shit happened. That happened. One of the single youngest.
What do you think of it?
Talent. I think it should be stopped by the league office almost.
Really?
I can't believe that the Dallas Mavericks. And this is something else, because obviously Anthony Davis is a hell of a player. But you only got Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic? A 30, 10, and 10 at the age of 24?
I'll tell you what I don't want to see.
I can't believe
it. If I see this, I'm not going to be the only person who notices. If the Dallas Mavericks wind up winning the NBA draft lottery anytime in the next 2 or 3 years, people are going to call BS. People are going to call BS, because this looks like the NBA is in a absolute crisis ratings wise.
Well, they've got
and they wanted a great player on the Lakers so they can rekindle Lakers Celtics in the finals. I just hate it from the standpoint of everybody else in basketball has to build a team except for the Lakers, who just get to recreate themselves, in an unfair way for years, Damon, for years. I mean, they had Magic. They got Worthy. They got Worthy for nothing. They got Shaq for nothing. They browbeated everybody into passing on Kobe Bryant. They got Kobe for basically nothing. They got LeBron for nothing. They literally never have to build anything. And why? Explain to me this. Why is it good for Dallas to trade Luka at 25
It's not.
to the Los Angeles Lakers without even finding out if anybody else had a better offer? Why would you trade a 25-year-old player for a 31-year-old player who's missed a lot of time with injuries without even exploring if there was a team out there that was willing to give you, I don't know, their 25-year-old player who's a star? Damon, this comes across like, why would the Lakers, one of the richest, most powerful, iconic franchises in NBA history, why would they get hand delivered a player like this? It really feels like the league is trying to save itself, and like they forced the league, they forced the Mavericks into this somehow. I don't know how, but we'll give you a couple lottery picks. We'll make you win the lottery.
And the Lakers are no longer now on LeBron's timeline. They're on Luka's timeline. What, somebody said that if LeBron didn't even know about this for real, if that's real, if LeBron did not know about this, is LeBron now about to get traded? Are they just going to get out of the LeBron Anthony Davis era all at once here? Does that put LeBron in play to the Warriors? I know that's something that people are talking about.
I've seen that too. Yeah.
It's nuts the way this whole thing is happening. I've even heard that this is Sheldon Adelson's wife trying to scuttle the value of the Dallas Mavericks to move that franchise to Vegas, which is where her home is. I mean, there are so many conspiracy theories swirling around this whole thing. What I do know is that Mark Cuban, who is smarter than Mark Davis.
He doesn't own the team anymore, right? He only owns a part of it.
Is out as the governor, right? And
he loved
what I do
Luka.
is I think he looked at the fact that Luka was about to be due a $346 million max deal and said, this will not be the profitable thing I need it to be, even paying a guy that I just think Mark Davis has looked at all NBA numbers and sees a storm coming and got
Cuban.
out. Yeah, excuse me, Cuban. Yes, I keep on saying Davis. I mean, Mark Cuban.
Okay, so they were gonna, but you think it's because he smokes cigarettes and drinks beer and he's out of shape and all that stuff? I mean, it's like, who cares? He led you to the finals last year.
As Ryan Russillo said, I don't want to steal his line, but I was hearing him talk. Luka could literally be bringing the ball up the court smoking a cigarette. It doesn't fucking matter. Is he a little bit out of shape? Is he a little doughy? Does he need more discipline? Sure. Yes, all 25.
They went to the finals.
He is. If we were having an NBA dispersal draft, everyone in the league is now available to be drafted. The number one overall pick in the league is Luka Doncic in an NBA dispersal draft.
How does De'Aaron Fox net more for the Kings than Luka Doncic nets for the Mavs?
It's remarkable.
The Kings got 6 draft choices. Zach LaVine and Sidi Sissoko. 6 draft picks. The Lakers, where are all the Lakers draft picks and pick swaps and all that would make this more equitable?
Right.
It's unbelievable. The Warriors, and people are going to call BS on this.
The Warriors have talked with the Bulls. What apparently they were about to get a deal done for Jimmy Butler, and Butler said, "I'm not re-signing there, so don't even bother."
Which is a gift. That's a gift.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. You don't want to be in the Jimmy Butler business right now. But a lot of basketball is where I'm going to be starting my 11 o'clock show here, Larry, in just a few minutes.
Let me just finish with this, because I think Joe Lacob is starting to look an awful lot like Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones was an awesome owner at the beginning. He hired Jimmy Johnson. They became a dynasty. And then he made all these great deals for the league, and he was hailed as this great businessman and this unbelievable football god. And then he ran off Jimmy, hired Switzer, and has been turned from genius to laughingstock, meddlesome owner whose greatest accomplishment is the creation of a building. And guess what? Joe Lacob is literally on the exact same path. He was deemed a genius. He bought the team. He talked big. They won titles, and now he got the Chase Center built, like Jerry got Jerry's World built, and Chase Center is opulent, and it's a palace, and he deserves all the credit for it. But now he's literally Jerry Jones. Jerry and his son are running the Cowboys into the ground, and Joe has run out the late Jerry West, Bob Myers, Travis Schlenk. He's employing 2 of his sons in the front office. Mike Dunleavy, from what I hear, is just a gatherer of information who scouts. Nothing gets done without Joe's approval. I see Joe and Jerry looking very, very similar. Very similar.
And look at it this way. The value of their franchises cannot be argued with. So if they want to point to that as the results, they certainly can. They got that scoreboard going for them. But the teams that we're watching in the seasons that you've been stuck in, and the spinning of the wheels that now defines the Warriors. I mean, they are paralysis by overanalysis of all teams in
totally
sports.
Right.
They might be that number one team. And we will have more to talk about as Super Bowl week rolls along, Larry. We're going to have a show on Wednesday. We're going to have a show on Friday. It's brought to you by Sam's Chowder House. And we hope you plan on tuning in if you consider yourself a football guy, because we'll be talking props and a lot of fun stuff over the next couple of shows this week, Larry.
Yep. We got the Super Bowl week. We'll make our predictions later in the week. That's going to do it for us. Everybody check out Damon in a minute here on his channel. I'll be doing a little hit with the Gregs at around 11:30, and then I'm filming a segment for the Marty Lurie documentary.
Oh!
Yes, I'll be in the Marty documentary. Until then, get out of here. Thanks to Sam's Chowder House.